Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Starseed Gathering, the podcast. We have Sean with us today. He's going to talk about beautiful things related to health and spirituality and alignments. It's going to be very interesting. It's been a while. I haven't done those podcasts because I had a concussion and I actually lost many videos. And Sean is nice enough to have this redo with me today so that you're going to be able to connect with him and see this beautiful knowledge that he has developed in the last year. So please tell us who you are, where you're at on this beautiful planet, Sean, and yeah, whatever you want to share today.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm Sean. I am in Southern California, sunny Southern California. And yeah, I'm just grateful to share a bit about my story and where I came from, where I am now, and what I have to offer. So thank you for having me.
Very nice. Yeah, I think your story is very interesting also, Sean, like that, where everything kind of started to happen. I think it's very important for me when I connect with all of you beautiful souls to tell people, because I think most people don't really know what awakening is, or we all have like very big events in our lives that kind of shake everything up. And whatever you would like to share as far as, what was your when things started to shift, when you started to change the way you were, maybe things you were doing in your life, or people you had around you, like what made you made those changes, even about activity and exercise and everything else, so that people can kind of relate to changes and why those things kind of come up to the surface in our lives. So go ahead and yeah, share whatever you feel like.
Okay, for sure. So, growing up as a kid, I was always super active. I was kind of incentivized by my parents to play sports. Like, well, you got to do something. So, I got into karate that because I wanted to be more like the Ninja Turtles when I was in like third grade. I wanted to skateboard and eat pizza and fight crime and, kick ass. So I joined karate. That's really where I got introduced to meditation. I played soccer, I played other sports. So I'm grateful for that because it gave me a point of reference to know that, like, when we exercise and put the proper nutrients into our body, that I had that like baseline to know that, like, wow, you can feel really good. Um, and so as far as like what kind of kick started my own spiritual journey, like there was always some component to that. I had always had this inkling of a thought that, like, I have done this before. This isn't my first time. Even though, like, even going to soccer practice as a kid, I noticed that, like, from all the sprints, my knees would hurt, my back would hurt, and there was no like break. Like, I'm not gonna go, oh, I gotta take this week off and recharge. Like, that wasn't a thing when I was like 12. So I would find myself doing like yoga postures that I now know, but at the time I was just kind of intuitively guided to be like, this is how I can get breath into this area. So I remember just being in a plow pose as like a 12-year-old kid because I had achy parts from soccer practice. So there was always that component, but what really was the Kickstarter for me, like many heroes' journey begins with tragedy. My story is definitely no different. So the biggest thing for me was probably 2005. My little brother passed away. He got into a car accident riding his motorcycle, and even like I still remember it like it was yesterday, like the day of, we were driving down to the hospital, and I just remember my mom crying because she's a nurse, so like she knew what was happening based on the procedures that they were doing, that like this doesn't look good. But I was like still the relentless optimist of like things are going to work out. Like I envisioned us having this like future together and we're gonna like work together doing something. He was basically like my protege. Like anything that I had figured out that was valuable, like I passed on to him, but he took my advice of like, this is what works, this is what doesn't. So he was just like me, but just a better version, in my opinion. So when he died, I like it fucked me up pretty bad. Like I felt like the victim. I felt like this is so unfair. Why would something like this happen to me? Like I didn't understand any of the things that I do now. And like I said, I just went into full on victim mode. It was, at that point, I was just out of high school in my early 20s. I was old enough to drink. So it was just party time. And I just did anything and everything that I could to just numb myself from that pain and run from it. And, that lifestyle is not sustainable. Like, once I noticed that people I was hanging out with were either dying or going to jail, then it was a pretty clear indicator I needed to make a change. And even on top of that, I noticed that my own body was like not functioning the way it had previously. Like, it was all that stress and all those exogenous toxins were taking a toll on my body. And so kind of a little bit of context, I was working a lot of construction at the time, so that again like put an extra toll on my body. I ended up at a point where I was having some back pain. It just felt like there's this pain here and then there's nowhere to go here, and I was like in between it, like in between a rock and nerve pain. And I went to this doctor and he told me that I had pinched my sciatic nerve. The only way it's going to get better is if I stretch. And so one day I was just riding my bicycle and I thought that I could get into this area that felt like that's where the sensation was. And I was pedaling and trying to stretch into it at the same time. And apparently I just moved the wrong way. And that day, I had a couple friends that were on their way to my house as I was riding back. Like, I'll meet you guys there, and then we're going to go on a hike to these waterfalls that, if anyone knows the area, it's Deep Creek Falls off of the Pacific Crest Trail. So it's a really popular spot. We're going to hike there. And by the time they got to my house, I was holding onto the walls just to walk down the hallway. Like, all right, something is not right. So I'll try to condense it. Long story short, a few months go by, nothing improved. I figured like this is going to pass, my body will heal. And it was as bad or worse. After several months, I was at a point where I was just so miserable. I was like ready to just be done with it. Like, if this isn't better in 2 weeks, I got this extension cord. I looked on the Boy Scouts of America website because apparently that's where they teach you how to tie a noose. Crazy. So I was just planning on like ending it. And I just kept giving myself this like little, I guess, drop of hope. Like, I'm not willing to let go of like my favorite music or just like the smell of fresh air, like the touch of plants. Like, I'm not willing to give up all these things if things are going to slowly get better. But if not, like, I can't live like this. So little by little, I started to kind of make some changes. But ultimately, I needed to have back surgery. I found out that I had ruptured a disc. I ended up having the surgery. And that's really where my healing journey began, because it was supposed to be like, this is the thing that fixes everything. And it did make an improvement as far as like the shooting nerve pain down my leg. Like, that was a little less, but I still felt like unfulfilled. And I thought that I was eating pretty healthy at the time. And like, I was in a situation where the job I had was the job I wanted. I was in my own place at the time. And I was like, all these boxes have been checked. And it was like, I had this unique opportunity to, like how Jim Carrey has said, like, I wish everyone had money so they can see that's not the thing that makes you happy. I was in a spot where I had just had the surgery. This is supposed to be the thing that fixes everything. I had the house, the job, whatever. And I was still like so empty feeling inside. And I was like, well, what about nutrition? I know I eat pretty good, but obviously there's room for improvement. And I was like, is there anyone out there that only eats the healthiest food? And I was like, what even is that? There's so much subjective information. So I was like, all right, wheatgrass is pretty healthy. People take shots of wheatgrass to get healthy at like juice bars and things like that. So I went on to YouTube and started looking up people that juice wheatgrass. Does anyone live off wheatgrass? And I came across this guy who was talking about, if we want to feel alive, we need to put the foods that have life in them into our body. And like started talking about like feeding our body on a cellular level, feeding our cells so they can detox. And just a lot of the things he was saying made sense to me. So I was like, I'm going to try this. And I started kind of a juice fast protocol where I was doing a juice for breakfast, a juice for lunch, and a big salad for dinner, get some fiber, like push everything out. And again, try to condense it a little bit. But after a few weeks, I noticed that it was like, not that it was like, this is what was happening. And now I realize that there's a direct correlation. It's that as I was allowing all these patterns to kind of come up, I was having these memories of things that had happened that I hadn't thought about in years. And it was all these things coming out of my nervous system that I was noticing. And then if I would sit through it and let it pass, then like there was just quiet on the other side. And I was like, well, now what? And so I found myself just like sitting in this quiet, and it was almost like a meditative state, but that wasn't even really my intention. And that's kind of where the beautiful thing happened, is that in sitting in the silence, there was just this little bubble up of joy. And I was like, oh, what was that? That's new. I haven't felt that in a while. And then they a little bit stronger and a little bit like longer pulse and then a little bit more intense. And then I ended up in this place where I just felt connected to everything, and I had no pain in my body, and everything just felt so good. And it was like I just felt so connected. Like I had absorbed all the intelligence from all of the living nutrients in these plants I was consuming, and it kind of like reprogrammed my cells and my DNA and like everything. So I was at this point where it felt like any question I could ask, the answer was provided before I could even finish asking the question. And all these things just started to make sense. And then the integration process began, because then it was like, what are you going to do? It was almost like in a sense of a psychedelic experience, where we can have this profound experience that gives us this new perspective on life, but without the integration, it's not going to do us any good. So it's like how Joe Rogan has explained like the DMT experience. It's like it wipes the whole motherboard. It's Control Alt Delete for your entire life, and then at the end, it's a blank desktop, and all there is this little folder in the corner, this labeled "My Old Bullshit." And you have two options: you can go on with this new perspective of life that you've just been gifted with, or you can go back into my old bullshit. But the thing about the my old bullshit folder is that's like it's ego, but it's also like that's what attaches us into a physical body. So the ego is not necessarily the enemy. Like it's our personality. Like we don't want to like destroy the ego, because that just puts us at war with ourselves. So I really like how Yogananda explains it. Like there's the capital S self, the true self, capital S, and then there's the small self, the ego. And we need to integrate these parts. And so like the next 10 years of my life was that integration process to really figure out what works for me, what doesn't, being, a living human experiment, trying to find different things and just try everything under the sun, because I was really trying to get back to that place. But again, like that's still attachment and that's striving. So it was not until I really let that go that I really started to kind of have these experiences again. And maybe like it wasn't something to get back to, but it was just to give me a little taste of like this is what it could be like. And if you go through and do the work, then this is what life will be like. And so it's just been a matter of integration and just stepping out of my comfort zone and being willing to just be completely rejected by my friends and family, and have that acceptance of like social circles and community to like, this is something that I found within myself that feels more like home than any other home has ever been. And so I'm just going to follow that, and whatever comes of it, I know that like that's what's meant to be. And so really just following this path has led me to the point to where I'm at today. And like every struggle and every obstacle has given me a new tool to navigate. And I know, like I mentioned, one of my favorite quotes, before we started the recording, that a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. And I'm a true believer in that. So, it's been a bumpy ride, but I'm grateful for all the obstacles, and I'm grateful that now I just feel so equipped that even though like, things aren't perfect as we would hope for them to be, but within that, there is divine orchestration. And so there is perfection within the imperfection. And when we can accept that and just navigate within that, then that's kind of really where the real magic occurs in the alchemy. So yeah, it's just getting to the point where I had to learn all these harsh lessons on my own, and cultivating all those tools that now I can share with the world and share through like programs that I created and things like that.
Exactly. I love what you explained. It's very inspiring to see that, you started with, a lot, like most of us, right? We have a very hard time or trauma, whatever trauma that looks like. And then, the easy way, it was like that for me too. It was like, let's drink it all, and let's just party, because that's what that was the only thing that I felt that was available to me. And then life brings us to other places and let us meet other people that are really meaningful for you, with videos, whatever it is. Like there's always this divine guidance that we don't really plan, that's going to be dropped into our awareness, and then we can make a choice, right? What would you say that were the main biggest changes that you made for yourself to feel better?
Like overall or physically or?
Everything you want to share.
Okay, cool. So, really, for me, it began with nutrition in the body, like really understanding what that is, and then having to accept that basically everything we've been taught about what nutrition is has been wrong. Because, as sad to say as it is, like my whole family is in the medical field. My dad, my mom, and my stepmom are all registered nurses, going from like labor and delivery to like the emergency room. So I've got a pretty good taste of it growing up, and I think they are really well intentioned. But I think the way the system is structured, it's like it's fucked up. A How's that saying go? A patient cured is a customer lost. So this information that we're being provided is counterintuitive, but because there's this confirmation bias around this is what we're supposed to do, we have so many people that are just getting frustrated because they're not getting results, because they're trying to do what they think is like the right thing to do, because that's what we're told is. And we trust these people that are supposed to have our best interests at heart, but unfortunately, they don't. And even the people that do have our best interests, they've been taught by a system that doesn't. And so they're just doing their best based off the information that they've been provided. So step number one was to completely let go of the idea that I know anything at all. Like the Socrates quote, like all I know for sure is that I know nothing at all, or to paraphrase it. So to wipe the slate, relearn based on my own, subjective experience and research from people that have the results that I'm looking for, how to live longer from people that have lived the longest, applying some of those principles. So step one is, the proper movement and proper nutrition to restore balance to the body. Because if you're stuffing yourself full of McDonald's cheeseburgers and Krispy Kreme donuts, and like your gut is full of parasites, and there's that feedback loop going from our vagus nerve to our brain and every other part of our body that's telling our brain which neurotransmitters to produce, meditation is not going to be very enticing. Meditation can fix a lot of things. Like I'm sure many of the listeners here are, going to be familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Like he's got his Becoming Supernatural book is just like case study after case study after case study, all the benefits. But I think the proper first step is going to be to bring balance to the body, and then meditation. And that's really what I've learned that yoga is all about. The yoga asana practice is about integrating breath and movement through participation with life. And that's going to break us out of these mental patterns where we now have a blank slate to choose and create something new. So step one is to balance the body, and then we can apply all these like intuitive things, the more subtle energy qualities like mudras, mantras, different affirmations. I love sound therapy, tuning forks, things like that. So it all goes together. So step one is just create that balance. And then once we get into that place where we've wiped the slate of all these recurring old patterns, then we can create something new. And then it's just a mental game. It's a game of what am I choosing to focus on? It's realizing that in every moment we have free will to choose, like, where are we pointing the ship? Like, I love Jim Rohn had so many great quotes. He says, the same wind blows on us all. So it's not the direction of the wind that determines the destination, it's the set of the sail. So we can always, like, we're all gonna have challenges. There's gonna be opportunity mixed with challenge. And it's always gonna be in varying degrees, but it's never gonna be just one or the other. So it's all about, like, what are we choosing? So restore the balance to the body, and then it becomes a mental game. And then we have free will of, like, what am I intending to create in this moment? Because I had to understand, it's just like the quote from the Buddha, like, wherever attention goes, energy flows. So where am I investing my attention? And it is an investment. Attention is a currency. That's why we have the saying, pay attention, because we're paying our attention. We can only focus it on one thing at a time, regardless of what this, hustle porn culture wants to tell us to do, of like multitask and be the best multitasker. Like, that's not the way it works. You can have multiple things going, but you might only do like 10 things at once at 50%. Or if you do one thing, you can give it 100%, or two things, 80%. Like, we need to focus on one thing at a time, and that's where our energy is going. And that's why we need to be so decisive with how we invest our attention, because that is really wherever we have our free will and choose to place it is what we are creating more of. So really in acknowledging that the balance and then the free will and then consciously choosing, and that's how we can really become the architects of our own reality and choose our destination, create the experience that we want to have that inspires us to where we're going to bed inspired and we're waking up fired up, where we don't need an alarm clock and a gallon of coffee to get us going through the day to just drag through. It's like I want to do this because this is like every morning is like Christmas morning, like I get to create something today. Yes.
I love it. I love it. When you were talking about the phases that really saw like us reconnecting to our body, you talking about balance, but like, you probably can remember that time where we feel like crap, but we don't even make those conscious choices. We just eat whatever. We're not even thinking about anything. So we're kind of disconnected from this vessel that we have, and it doesn't feel good. We're bloated. We feel like the body is just all reacting in different ways, and we have highs and lows with the coffee too. And I remember I had coffee in the morning, and I would have coffee at 4 p.m. to finish my day, and then I would go on for 3-4 hours more, but then I would become workaholic, right? It was just not balanced at all, right? And then the food, like you eat sugar, you have those big pikes of energy, and then you go so down, you want to go and have a nap. So it's like and it's so there's so much more need of teachings about that, like how does your body react to what you eat. And yes, there's like different types of recipes and diets, but your body is unique to you, right? So you need to be in tune with it to know what's good for you, right? And then when you were talking about all of the rest, like all I could feel like it's like all of the energies too. Like that's also like kind of the second step you were talking about. Like what gives you energy, what feels aligned to you, and then what do you choose to think? So body, mind, and soul, right? Those all three connected so much. How are you able to connect the three of those parts of yourself? Like what is the easiest way for you to do so?
Yeah, great question. So the number one method for me is yoga, that's actually what yoga means, is that it's union. So it's bringing all opposing polarities into harmony in the present moment through like the heart-centered awareness. It's breathing it into the heart and allowing the intelligence of the body to alchemize that, because it will, without us doing anything. It's just a matter of priming the system properly. And that's really what my program is all about. That's what really connected the dots for me, because I had some plant medicine experiences that had really like blown my perception of like just what is possible. And it took me to a place that felt more like home than anywhere I had ever been. But without integration, then it's just like dissociative. And it made me even more and more and more detached from this current reality. Because I was like, well, if that's home, then like, what is this? And it was through yoga, and not just going to like real yoga, like applying these 5 principles that were developed by Krishnamacharya. I was lucky enough to meet a soul that as soon as I met this person, I was like, oh, they know what's up. Like just the energy it said everything that I needed to know without words ever being spoken. And so it was someone that had connected those two worlds from going like the psychedelic experience to everyday life, and yoga brought it together. And so I learned from them how to really make it happen. And I took my yoga teacher training, and now I'm kind of paying the tools forward because that's really what brought everything together. Yeah. And just like you were mentioning before, we eat the food and everyone else is doing the same thing. We have that kind of like confirmation bias, and everyone's like, oh, I guess I'm just getting old now. But like, that's just the story that we agree to because everyone else is telling the same story. That's not the way it's supposed to be. There's no bears in the woods pushing around walkers and getting gray hairs and oh, I'm so stressed. I got to pay my taxes. You know? So again, like going back to playing soccer as a kid and like exercising and eating healthy, like I'm really glad that I had that point of reference to know that like it's not supposed to be like this. It can be better. And then when you talk to people and go like, how's everything going? Oh, I feel okay. Like that's a bummer. because you should feel fucking awesome. And if you don't, then that's a red flag. So what are you
Mm.
doing to change it? And a lot of people, the answer is nothing. And, you know, again, like we all have
They
free will,
normalize it.
but
Yeah.
whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. So to do nothing is also a choice.
Yeah, I love that. So if I'm understanding well your story, it's like all of those events and everything that you got a taste of at some point got all merged together. So that's where you're at now. You were talking about your program. Tell us about your program, what you're offering to people to get along in this wave of change, positive change for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just like you were talking about. You know, there's no one size fits all. So that's really what my program is based on, is that there is no one size fits all. That's why, you know, my teacher, Krishnamacharya, he would say, do your yoga. And by doing your yoga, he means like, don't do yoga. You can't do my yoga. I don't want to do your yoga. He says, do your yoga. So there is no one size fits all. And it's really about observing this relationship of breath, which is our life force, the prana, the chi, you know, this vital, like literally means to respiration is like you know, to do over, and then spire is Latin for spirit. So we're re-spiriting ourselves with every breath, and just like understanding how magical of a gift that really is, and observing the relationship of that with the intelligence of our own body, and then using that feedback to create an environment where it's going to do what it does best and heal itself. So really my program is about giving people the tools to have their own daily practice and create their own, like just even on a more basic level, like I mentioned, restoring balance to the body first. So number one, week one is daily habits. Week two is mindset, because you know motivation is great, inspiration is great, but they're only going to get you a finite distance. Discipline and consistency are what's going to get you to where you want to be. So it's having that discipline, in yoga is referred to as tapas, is that heat building quality, that's a devotion to show up for yourself regardless of what it looks like, with a non-attachment. Like yesterday's practice doesn't have to look like today's practice, and vice versa. So really giving people the tools to tune into the intelligence of their own body through that relationship of breath, and then customize that for their specific goals, specific lifestyle choices. So number three, week three, is all about medicinal movement, where I explain the 5 principles that were developed by Krishnamacharya. And for the people that maybe aren't familiar with who he was, it's basically the teacher's teacher. He's the reason that yoga is in the West. So the people that he taught came and brought yoga over here to the West, and it took many different forms. And, you know, they expressed what they had learned from him in a multitude of ways, whether it was like Iyengar developed props, you know, different people developed different methods. But why I feel so fortunate is that my teacher's teacher went and learned from him at the end of his life. So the teaching I got to receive were basically like the culmination of his life's work. So it's all about that relationship with body and breath. So numbers, you know, week three is all about learning those 5 principles that he created. Week 4 is the basics of nutrition. Like so many people just don't have a basic understanding of nutrition, like you were talking about, like the sugar spike. Like, well, but we can also get like a good amount of that readily available glucose from fruit, where we're not going to get that insulin spike because it has the fiber, it has the phytonutrients and things like that. So it's kind of just breaking it down that, like, you know, there is no, like, we're not demonizing nutrition. Like, fat is not bad. We just need to understand the facts of what's too much, what's not enough. Carbs are not bad. We need to understand, like, there's 3 different kinds: refined, complex, and simple. What kinds do you want to avoid? What kinds do you want to consume more of? And the same for protein. Like, where do you get your protein, bro? Like, I haven't eaten meat since 2019, and like, obviously, I'm not wasting away at this point. I'm very healthy. I have strength. I'm improving daily. So, and I'm not even advocating people to cut out meat completely. I'm just saying that, like, you know, there's no one size fits all. So understand that, you know, there's different qualities to these different food sources, and to tune into the feedback provided by your own body to see like what you resonate with at your current level of evolution, because that's what we're really all doing, is evolving. So then it goes into, starts with a little bit more like the dense, gross aspects. And then so getting into the nutrition, now we're getting a little bit more subtle with water. Water is, this might be like a mind-blowing moment for some people, but all water is not created equal. Just like all food is not created equal. It's not just a simple H2O. There's some tangible, measurable properties that make certain types of water better than the others. So week 5 is all about optimizing water. Week 6, now we're getting even more subtle. It's all about integration of breath with our nervous system, how we can apply different methods of pranayama, the breath work, into our life, how we can have these little like short resets, managing that internal state. Going back to week 1, the daily blueprint is like managing our internal state. Well, into week 6, like the breath is really one of the best ways we can do that. And then week 7 is all about gut health. I still have a small kombucha business I've shifted my focus at this point to the more service-based offering, but I do still offer that to people. So I'm a big proponent of gut health. Like literally on my bottle, it says fuel your intuition. And there's a picture of a light going from the gut to the brain and the light bulb showing up. Like really, we have this vagus nerve that goes from our gut to our brain, and having a gut dysbiosis and wondering why we're anxious, why we're depressed. Like your gut is telling your brain which neurotransmitters to produce. And Hippocrates was the father of modern medicine. Like modern doctors, when they become doctors, when they complete medical school, they take the Hippocratic oath that Hippocrates created. So we're still following some of these principles. And he said that all disease begins in the gut. So conversely, that means that if we understand what makes a healthy gut and we prioritize that, that all health can begin there as well. And so we can have more dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all the neurotransmitters that make us feel good. We can be in charge of allowing our body to produce that and creating the environment where it can take place with these habits. And then, so that's week 7. And then week 8 is all about how to make it sustainable. It's just some of my favorite recovery methods, benefits of sound therapy, different mantras, mudras, things you can hold, even like hot and cold therapy. Like I don't recommend everyone go jump on an ice bath or get in the sauna for however long, but those are some valuable tools that if they are applied, there's tangible benefits to it. So it's all about that. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we really just want to have the tools to make this change sustainable for life. We don't want like a quick fix. This isn't a diet. Diet has literally it has the word die in it. So we don't want to do that. We're not looking for some simple pill. Everyone's just looking for the quick fix. So what I'm really trying to share is sustainable lifestyle habits to customize a program that's going to work for you long term. And again, really just make it to where it's a long lasting, sustainable change to where you can just live your best life and extract the most joy out of every present moment that you are willing to focus your attention on and be present for.
I love it. It's very integrative. It's like if you put everything that you've learned through your own experience and everything else, and put it very personalized to the person, tailored to their own needs. Do you do this in person? Do you do it online? Is it pre-recorded? Tell me how it is.
Yeah, so all of the modules are pre-recorded, so they get access to that. But then there is everyone that signs up for the program gets a one-on-one call with me to like, what are your specific goals? So we can start to kind of create your own customized blueprint. So you're not like, dude, you just dumped all this information on my lap. What do I do with it? Like, I'm here to help you kind of put that where it needs to go. So you have clarity, you know what you need to do. And then there's weekly group calls to where anyone that has questions, we focus on the topic of the week. I broke it down into 8 weekly modules. So we'll be focusing on that. And obviously any questions that come up in the meantime, they can be asked. And so we have that community support, but also the group calls where, they can ask any questions, connect with other members, and just, stay connected as a community. Because essentially that's really what is going to create long-lasting results for a lot of people as well, is community. They say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So You know, this is, again, not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we want to make sure that we're going to last, we're going to go the distance, and we're going to last, and, you know, not wither away as we age. I truly believe that we can actually improve and progress. And, you know, I'm very confident that with the tools that I have that I'm sharing, that I'm personally going to be able to be very active in an old age. I want to shatter those preconceptions. I'm a big fan of Bruce Lipton. He wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. And so it's all about how our perception of our reality alters our DNA. So with these habits and with this mindset, that we can literally like determine our genetic expression. And obviously at some point, like our physical body is going to expire, and that's fine. But it doesn't have to be some painful process that just gets worse and worse and worse till we're like, oh, hell with it. Just take me. Like, no, we can still be joyful all the way up into that final breath, the Maha Samadhi, the last Samadhi, the great Samadhi.
Yeah.
Into the oneness. I think it can be a full experience all the way through, and that's just the next adventure. You know, we can embrace it all open, with an open heart and fearlessly and joyfully. And that's really what these tools are allowing us to do. And I know in my own life, it works extremely well, because obviously there's still ups and downs, but just being able to navigate that again more fearlessly and joyfully, and just trust that like this is all working out. Because when we show up for ourselves and we hold ourselves accountable to our own rate of vibration, then we know that life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. Because if we're just stagnant and we're doing all the things that we necessarily aren't going to benefit from, like eating the shitty food, drinking, running away from our problems, then we're going to get that kensho, that traumatic wake you up moment. But if we can take the more subtle approach with the satori, the slowly peeling back the layers, showing up for ourselves on a daily basis, then we know that it's all going to be for our own benefit. And it's just showing up for ourselves on a daily basis ensures that life is happening for us, not happening to us. And it's always happening for us. But if we show up for ourselves on a daily basis, it'll be a little bit more subtle, and we can tune into that rather than just having this moment,
exactly.
getting completely leveled and being like, wow, everything I've been doing has not been what I need, and having to build from the ground up, because I have those moments, and they're not fun. So now I show up for myself on a daily basis rather than to just ignore life and wait till I have some horrible event to come through and just wake me up again through some traumatic experience. I choose to stay tuned in, and evolve with it, and participate with life. That's really what it's about.
I love it. So you're an active player and actor in your own life. You're not just waiting for things to happen and bring you wherever you need to go. And you were talking about sailing. I think obviously we're going to have some storms at some point, but if we can make the in-between storms a bit more smooth for ourselves, with more tools, with more faith in our power. I think with everything that you've shared for me really resonates a lot with everything I do too. Is how can we empower ourselves? I mean, how can you feel more empowered in your own life? Okay, I'm going through those health issues. What can I do to change things little by little and feel better? I'm having all of these emotional outbursts. How can I actually deal with that too? How can I move my body so that I feel more in alignment, and I don't have those days where I wake up and everything hurts and I just feel lazy and I just want to stay in bed all day? Not that it's bad to do that sometimes, but not every day, right? So I love this it's like an empowered balance program. That's kind of what's coming up.
Yeah, great way to kind of summarize it, because if anyone could take one thing away from what I offer, is that we all have the tools within us already. It's just, again, we're not taught these things because they're not empowering. And sadly enough, we grew up in a culture that wants to disempower us because we need more factory workers and people to work on production lines and things like that. Don't think for yourself, just do your job and collect your check and retire at 65 and then wait to die. That's not what I want. So I really want people to know that we all have these tools within us already. And I'm just trying to help people learn how to use them, learn how to use what you already have, because they're not going to tell you this in school. It's definitely not going to be on TV. Maybe you'll get some little breadcrumbs other places, but ultimately, like, if you don't actively seek out this information and find people that have embarked on this path previously and that can share what they've learned through their own integrated experience, then that's the only way that we're going to really figure out how to use what we've been gifted with inherently.
Yeah, and I feel I just want to say thank you. I don't know, that's what's coming up because it really is like you've learned so much and you've experienced so much and you just want to help others. And I feel like there's a lot of heart energy through that program. You really want to do it for the right reasons. It's like I think for a lot of us that have awakened, however that awakening process was, when we see people suffer for health issues, for disconnecting from not being in contact with what they do, the choices they make, we want to support them to realign, to be in contact with their soul, right? So I feel this is really giving people on a platter like so many beautiful tools that they can just jump in and have support. And as you said, like it's very hard, I think, to make changes if you feel alone and you're not supported and you're like, I'm gonna try, but then your partner, your family, your friends are not doing the same and you're like, maybe I should stop. There's like always this back and forth energy. So I think always also having your support plus the community also helps to continue on that path and not moving away from it when it gets hard, because it won't always be easy, right? It's an up and down challenging path to actually choose different than the majority of people around us.
Right, right. And again, it's also, a way to really fast track it to where you don't have to take 13 years like I did and learn through trial and error. You can take like the best little gold nuggets
Right.
and compile them to where you can start getting results right away. You can have a really significant amount of change in a very short period of time,
That's
and
beautiful.
kind of change your own trajectory, and then be the example for maybe those people in our lives, because ultimately, like when they're kind of I don't want to, well, they
In
do.
resistance or
Yeah, when people in our life are shitting on our goals, it's not that they're wanting to be negative and like they're not in belief. It's that fear keeps them safe, they believe. So when they're kind of saying that like this can't be done, what they're saying is that I don't know where you're going with this because I haven't ventured out on my own. And if you just stay the same, then we'll be safe here in the known. But
mm,
like there's nothing there. There's no growth in the comfort zone. There's no growth in the known. So it's having that community that can support you. And then by you embodying that in your own life, then the people that are around you will notice that there's a change, and you can be that catalyst for other people as well and continue to
mm,
just pay it forward. So not only like that's really how it works. Like I wouldn't have any tools if I didn't go through my own challenge. So I had to fill my own cup up, and now I'm sharing it with others, and then they can do the same for themselves. I know how to fill my own cup. Now I can do it for the people in my life, friends, family. So it's just, that's again like how we change on a collective level as we begin on an individual level, and then just let that ripple, continue outward.
exactly. I love, 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 love this. Do you have a start date for this program? Do people just connect with you and see how when that starts? Because I heard it was 8 weeks long, so and everybody kind of starts, I guess, at the same time. So, is there any dates, or they just reach out to you to have the details? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, probably the best is just they can reach out to me for the details. I'm on Instagram. It's Party with the Planet 432, because 432 hertz is the frequency of the earth, and it's all about, nature provides us abundance if we're willing to tune into it. So that's my Instagram. I have a link in my bio where they can book a call if they want to learn a little bit more, see if it might be a fit. Just find out some information, or they can always just message me on Instagram or on Facebook. Um, so yeah, that's probably the best way to go about it. But it is all already created and ready to go.
Great. Okay, so we'll put all of your details at the bottom of this video. It's very inspiring to meet beautiful souls like you, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, sharing your knowledge, sharing your, I would even say, passion for health, for breath, for alignment, for all of the beautiful things that you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, please reach out to him if you have any questions about his program or anything that he's shared today. It was very lovely to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. And yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Till next time. Bye.
Peace.
Hmm.